Good evening, everyone. I'm Lauren, and this is your virtual tour of Tour de BonTon in Amsterdam, brought to you by Tiqets Awakening Weeks. For those of you who don't know, Tiqets Awakening Weeks is a 6-week celebration of the reopening of museums and attractions in 6 countries around the world. The venues participating in Awakening Weeks have worked day and night to reimagine their experiences and introduce new hygiene measures to make it safe for you to visit again. And they're also rolling out the welcome mat for those of us who aren't able to travel to them yet, with online experiences just like this one. So before I hand over to our presenter for this evening, I'm just going to take care of a few logistics. If you have any questions for our presenter, you can submit them through the Q&A box in the lower section of the Zoom window. There'll be a Q&A after the sort of initial tour, so please feel free to send us your questions and we're going to try and answer as many of them as possible. You can also upvote your favorite questions by giving them a thumbs up, and so that way we can ask the best questions first. This is a Zoom webinar, as some of you may have realized, so your camera will not be on, but you can use the chat to communicate with fellow attendees and the speaker. You can share where you're joining us from or your reactions during the session using this chat. Make sure that you select all panelists and attendees when sending your messages so that all of us can see them. If you have any technical difficulties, you can also use the chat to send a message just to all panelists, and we'll try and help you out as soon as possible. If you're having any trouble with audio, you can try and leave and then rejoin. That's usually an easy fix. And then finally, this presentation is going to be recorded, and we'll be sending the recording to all of our registrants in the coming weeks. And now, without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to our host for this virtual experience, Jennifer, and she is going to transport us to the world of Tour de BonTon. So, Jennifer, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. So, like Lauren said, I am Jennifer, and I am your tour guide at Tour de BonTon. In the evening, we are open as BonTon Club. We are a sex club and strip club. And in the daytime, we offer a look behind the scenes, behind our mysterious world. We decided to open the doors to the public because we realized that it is a mysterious business, and we just want to offer transparency and show a different side to the sex industry. So I'm going to tell you also more about myself. I used to be a sex worker myself. I worked for 8 years, and I did that next to my daytime job. 6 years, I used to work in advertisement. And 1 year I did a study, and the last year I only did sex work. So feel free to ask questions. I am very open about my past as a sex worker. So don't be embarrassed. So the guests who will visit Tour BonTon, I can walk around the building, and we have 5 rooms through the building, and in every room, they will find more information about this industry. And at the end of the tour, when they come back downstairs, they can ask questions like you can do right now. Lauren, back to you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So I'm going to kick us off with a couple of questions. So we have a question from Cadence, who would like to know, what was the most bizarre request that you ever had from a client?
Oh, there were so many. You know, this is the sex industry, and but it doesn't always evolve around the actual sexual deed. We had a lot of clients who had certain requests or certain fetishes, and one of the most bizarre experience that I had nothing to do with sex itself, but more about how much money clients were willing to spend for a night here without even having sex. For example, we had one client, his name was Sammy, and Sammy was this really rich businessman. He was the CEO of multinationals. And when Sammy used to come to the club, he always used to buy the most expensive bottle of champagne that we had. I have it right here. Armand de Brignac Blanc. This one is 2,500 euros, and he would buy that for all the girls in the club. And in the club where I worked, we had around 20 girls, between 15 and 20 girls in the evening. So everybody was happy when Sammy walked in because we got 36% of every bottle that was bought for us. Yes.
Nice.
I'm going to tell you later about how much the clients pay per hour for every girl. But I want to tell the story of Sammy in regards to this question. So when Sammy came to the club, he wanted to be one of the girls. And he always used to go upstairs with four girls because what he wanted was one girl on top of him to do his makeup, one girl here and one girl here to do his nails, paint his nails red. And the fourth girl was in charge of the music and keeping the spirit alive. And when Sammy was in full makeup, we would put a wig on him. And what he wanted to do was stand in the middle of us. We had to be naked and we had to cheer him on like cheerleaders. And he never wanted sex. So when you talk about bizarre experiences, for me, it were clients like that who would easily spend 40,000 without touching one of us.
That's so
So,
interesting. It almost sounds
yeah,
like fun. It's really, yeah,
yeah,
super interesting.
yeah. The clients who go to a sex club, they pay €300 per girl per hour. But every sex worker in the Netherlands pays 37% tax. So basically, so you have €300 per girl per hour, and then the tax will be deducted, and the club gets a percentage. So the girl is left with €90 per hour per girl in the club. So it's a champagne business. Luckily, the girls can make a lot of money selling the champagnes in this
Okay,
industry.
an
Yeah,
interesting visual.
yeah.
Someone would like to know what made you decide to stop.
I was actually 31 when I decided to enter the business. And I was 39 when it was really time to go do something else. I always had a job on the side, so I did it part-time for a long time. But the last year of my life as a sex worker, I only worked in a club. And basically, your whole life evolves around working in the night. So I wanted different things for my life. I wanted a relationship, for example. I was single for 8 years. I just wanted to do different things. I had fun, but it was time to move on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. What do you think are some of the more common misconceptions about the red light district in Amsterdam, at least?
The red light district, that every girl is forced behind the windows. That is one of the main questions that the guests who visit BonTon have. They wonder if it's always forced prostitution. But that has to do with the media and the information that is given being very one-sided. For me, I never met someone who was forced in this industry, but it is happening, but it's just not my experience. So that is the biggest misconception, and that the girls who are in this industry don't really want to be in it, or they don't like it, or things like that, or they cannot think for themselves. So many misconceptions. Yeah.
Yeah. What made you decide to go into the industry then?
It actually intrigued me. I am born and raised in Amsterdam. I lived in the city center, so I'm very open-minded, and I had two friends who were already working in the escort industry, and they were always telling me their stories. So they were escorts for a high-class agency. I got intrigued, and at some day, one of the girls asked me if I wanted to join her. She was looking for an extra girl to go to one of her clients, and he wanted two girls. Um, and I said, yeah, why not? And then she said, okay, we are booked for 5 hours. And then I said, okay, what are we going to do for 5 hours? But she said it's not all about sex. If you are booked for, how do you say that, longer hours, they want more than just the actual sexual deed. So just follow my lead. And I actually had a really, really nice time with her and her client. And what really stuck with me that first time was how she used her sensuality with her client and how he was mesmerized by her. It isn't always like that, but that always stuck with me. And I decided to join the same agency as she did. Yeah. And I worked for them for 4 years.
Okay, so you've obviously met a lot of other sex workers as well. One of our attendees wants to know if you've met sex workers from other countries And if so, sort of how you think their approach maybe differs from the Netherlands, or, you know, if they're, how they're different, if they're different.
No, I never met sex workers from other countries. I quit 7 years ago. So when I started working, most girls were Dutch. So, but they could have a different cultural background. Like I am Dutch, but my parents are from Suriname. So that was different 15 years ago. I never met other from different countries.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any female clients?
Well, I did have a couple, not females alone. You don't have many females who go to the club. They are welcome though. I think they think they are not welcome. But we did have, couples regularly. And I did go to the room with couples. It was actually a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Another question about the different clients that you would have had. Is there an average age of clients, or all over the place?
A bit all over the place. When I started my work as an escort, the clients that were at that agency were a bit older, in their late 40s and 50s. Working for that escort agency was pretty, how do you say that? They had a lot of terms and conditions. For example, you had to have a job on the side to work for them or follow a study, because they did not want you to rely on the escort business. They wanted you to keep liking it. And since you were going out to dinner a lot with these clients in the escort business, you needed to be able to have a constructive conversation. These clients were businessmen traveling the world, a lot of them. In the club, the age was a bit younger, between 30 and 40, I would say. Sometimes a bit younger, but not a lot. Yeah, okay. So that was the age range.
Okay. It's interesting sort of how you described your, I suppose, interactions with them. What about sort of within the industry itself? Is there a sense of community with you and other sex workers, or with the clients themselves?
Yeah, it's there is a community actually. As a sex worker, you can work wherever you want. Basically, let me explain how it works at the red light district first. So to work behind one of the windows, the girls have to register first at the Chamber of Commerce. And with that number, they can rent a window. They pay between 80 and 150 euros for daytime shift or evening shift. But they can also work in a club if they want. So you can work wherever you want. But if you want to rent a window, you need to register at the Chamber of Commerce. If you work only in a club or for an agency, all you have to do is fill out a tax declaration. And with that, you give the club or the agency permission to deduct your tax. But you don't have to register at the Chamber of Commerce. So there is a community, because it's a world that there's still a stigma on. So you do form a community together, because we know how it can be different. And in Amsterdam, actually, you have the Prostitution Information and Healthcare Center. It's a big center curated for sex workers, so female, male, and transgenders. And in that community there, they have social workers that can guide you. They help you with taxes. They give self-defense classes. You can get tested for free, and you can get any help you want there.
That's I think this question sort of is a good follow-on from that one. And maybe it's a bit sensitive, but how do you think about consent in this profession? Do clients ever sort of address it? Do they ask for consent? Is that something that, the sort of social workers that you just mentioned, is that something they help you deal with?
But what do you mean consent? If they
ask for permission, I suppose.
To be with one of us?
Yeah,
when they come
to
to the
have
club?
sex. I think if you're already, maybe not at the club itself, but when you were working in the industry, if there was it something where they would at some point ask for consent to start doing something? Did some of them not ask?
Well, working in a club, basically you start out drinking champagne together. And that's the moment when you discuss and ask as a girl what the client wants, because the 300 euros is sex, basic sex, that we call it
Mhm.
like that, and oral sex. So if a client is looking for something more or extra and he didn't ask downstairs, he, there were times that they would ask, can I kiss you, for example? And that is something that I didn't do. So they know, they would know when they could feel it, I think, when they had to ask consent for something. But a lot was discussed downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where sort of like the ground rules are laid. And so then when you go upstairs, you each know what to expect from the other person.
Yeah,
Okay. And was
exactly.
there ever, oh, sorry, keep going.
And as escort is different, of course, because when you arrive, sometimes, a lot of times you started with dinner and then you could, communicate and discuss. But sometimes the door just opened and then you had to start speaking about that, and then you're already there. So, but it was always, it was like it was normal to discuss the ground rules.
Okay. It's
Yeah,
really interesting.
yeah.
And then you mentioned this question also, I think, kind of follows on neatly. Were there ever times when sort of when you got upstairs where the other person pushed the boundaries? Did they ever get violent? Was there ever, maybe did the self-defense classes ever come in
Yeah.
handy? Yeah.
No, I had one client who was being such a nuisance. He was trying to take the condom off every time. And at some point, I had enough. I said, listen, if you don't stop, I'm going downstairs and you don't get your money back. But I was in a club. So, working in this industry, you cannot be a timid or shy type. You just can't. You have to be able to fend for yourself, especially when you work in the escort industry and where you are alone. You go out to hotels alone. So I did have situations where I walked into a hotel room with a client, and when he opened the door, I could see that he was high on something, and when I looked past him, I could see a pile of drugs on his cupboard. It was so much, I thought there was someone else in the room somewhere hiding. So I opened the bathroom door to check if someone was there, but nobody was there. So he was having his own private party, and he was pretty wasted. And he got verbally aggressive after closing the door. He had to pay me, and he didn't want to pay me. He wanted to see me naked first. So those are situations that you think, okay, your mind starts to think for a plan B, because he was standing in front of the door.
Mm.
When you work for an escort agency, when you are in the hotel room and you handle the finances, you always have to call the agency and let them know you are okay, and because then the driver will leave. When you don't call them, they call you, and if you don't pick up the phone, the driver will come to the room. I didn't call them, so they called me, and they heard him screaming at me, and then she wanted to talk to him, and then he moved away from the door. So those are situations that worked out fine, but you have to stay, yeah, on top of everything
Mm.
as an escort. So at some point, I decided to go work in a club because it felt safer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt
Oh,
safer.
that
You're
makes sense.
indoor, you have a security guy, you have a panic button in the room, a phone. It just felt safer to me.
And those are
Yeah,
all, so that's the kind of stuff that they'll put in a club surrounding, like you said, the panic
yeah,
button. So you always feel like you've got help if you need it.
yeah. At every club that I worked in the Netherlands, they had a phone in the room, a panic button, and for me, myself, it was my personal preference to work for luxury clubs or high class agencies because everything was arranged well.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Um, one sort of question that I was thinking of that I think is also a really good one to ask. Someone's asked, how did you handle something like sexual health? Like, are there like a set of precautions that are standard? You mentioned that you've got sort of social workers at your aid, or that there was someone who, for example, didn't want to keep the condom on. What are your sort of sexual health practices?
It's a risky business. Let me start with that. Well, we were advised to get tested every 3 months. That's what they advise the girls in this industry. And when you work with your body, you really take good care of it. That's what we did. And we did get tested every 3 months or in between if it was necessary. And it was not just for the major STDs, but also bacteria. We have bubble baths. You just have to stay on top of things. But you learn as you go as well. So I did learn how to watch wandering hands when I was with multiple girls in the room, or you are busy with so many things when you are in the room with your clients and multiple girls. The client doesn't notice, but you are being careful. But it does happen that a condom rips, and it happened to me. I was with my client. He actually asked me if I wanted to have sex with him without a condom. And I said, no, everything has to be done safe. I did my whole speech. And then he told me he just came from a holiday and he went there and there. And in my mind, I thought, okay, so you probably did it without a condom where you were, if you went to a sex worker. And with that guy, my condom ripped when he came. So I thought, yeah, my life is over. I was on escorts with a colleague, and I cried in the car all the way back to the club. And in the dressing room, all the girls were standing around me, trying to comfort me. And the next day, or a few days later, I had to get tested. And I stopped working for, I think, 2 months once I got tested, because my mind wasn't on working. Yeah, so, and after that, I was a little bit paranoid, always checking if the condom was there. And yeah, it was, you get snapped back to reality when that happens,
Yeah, it's
and
a
it can
scary
happen.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What
I think
would
for me, that's the most scary experience, one of the most scary experience that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole
Yeah.
situation sounds like something that would be really, just so unsettling. I can only imagine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about something more positive then. What was the most positive experience that you ever had with a client?
I met so many interesting clients. They were actually, a lot of them were actually really sweet. And the clients who came to the club, these were clients looking for more than just sex. A lot of clients were looking for companionship. We used to talk a lot. We would have fun in the room with multiple girls. We had a lot of lonely clients as well. And I actually met someone while working in a club that with him I had an intimate connection. I wasn't looking at him or seeing him as my boyfriend or relationship type, because I didn't want to stop working. I actually liked working, but I did like the intimacy I had with him. So I ended up seeing him for 6 years next to my work in the club. Yeah. And I always appreciated that, actually, that I had that with him. Yeah, because for me, working, it was work. I was working. So that was nice. And you also had a lot of nice clients, they brought you flowers or, when you went on escort, they would wait for you with flowers and a bottle of champagne. We got a nice small gift, really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to separate like a romantic relationship like that with, what I suppose, sort of romantic relationship like that, then to separate that from relationships with clients, or?
No, it wasn't different. It wasn't difficult to separate it for me because I really saw it as work. So when I was in the club and I was with my clients, I was working. And for me, there was nothing sexy about it. Sometimes a client walked in and I knew, okay, I'm going to have a lot of fun because it was my type. But most of the clients were not my type, but it's not about your type in this industry, basically. So it wasn't difficult to separate, because I saw it as work, and then it made it easier.
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of honesty we're here for, Jennifer. This is super interesting. I think, I don't know if you can see the chat, but people are really enjoying this. It's so good to speak to someone who's going to be so open about their experience as well. We've still got a ton of questions, so I'm gonna now. I think this is quite an interesting one. How did your family feel about you working in the sex industry?
My mom was the first I told. Before I even started, I decided to tell my mom honestly that I was going to be an escort. And my mom was cooking in the kitchen. She was stirring the pot and she stopped stirring. And the only thing she said was, she never asked me why. She said, okay, I think you have thought it over and you are an adult, but if you're going to do it, make sure you go work with the best. But you have to understand, my mom was a wild one when she was young, and she used to go out and she was very open-minded. So I knew I could tell my mom, without shocking her. And after my mom reacted the way she did, I really didn't care about other people's opinion about my life. I told my best friends, and if somebody would approach me when I was going out, I still went out a lot those days, and would say, I heard you are an escort. I would just say, yeah, that's correct, without any explanation, because I didn't feel I needed to explain myself until this day, actually. Yeah. No. No, I still am very open with my friends about it. Yeah. I never lied about it. Never.
And this is interesting because someone's also asked, what about with romantic partners? What is their sort of response to the fact that you've been a sex worker? Is it information that you volunteer on the first date? How do you go about that? Is it a tough topic to talk about?
No, I am actually married. And
well,
yes, I found love. I was single while I worked in that whole period. I had intimacy with someone I met. And after quitting the business, I did see him for a while. He passed away at some point, and then I wasn't seeing anyone else until I met my husband. I told my husband, I was already quit for 4 years when I met my husband, and I told him 4 months into our relationship. Because I wanted an honest chance without being judged. Yeah. If I would have told him, it's not something you tell on the first date anyway. I mean, that's not something you just throw out there. But if I would have told him in a short period of time, he wouldn't have known me well enough to not judge.
Yeah.
But I waited 4 months, and then I felt I could tell him, which I did. And I didn't tell him because I felt he needed to know, not per se, but I never had lied about it, and I didn't want to start with him. So he reacted surprised, of course, because also he had an idea of a sex worker, like most people do. And it didn't match the woman that he met. So he just couldn't connect those two things. But we could talk about it openly. He could ask me anything, and I didn't sugarcoat it. I told him I actually enjoyed myself. We had good times, bad times, but I had no regrets. I told him, and so it was up to him if he would stay or go, and he stayed. Yeah. So
I think it's an interesting decision. Was it something that you struggled with? Did you wonder if you should tell him sooner, or did you make a conscious decision to see how things went before you told him? What was the sort of process in your mind?
I felt I felt it when the moment was right, because you can't tell it too soon and you cannot tell it too late. You cannot tell it after, a certain period of time. It's just that ship has sailed. But I felt at that moment, yeah, okay, I'm going to tell him now. Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really
Yeah.
interesting to hear that.
And I'm glad I did, actually. It's really, being able to be open about something I have no regrets about. It feels really comforting and free. I don't have to lie about it to him or hide a part of myself that was a big part of my life, 8 years. So yeah, it's nice to have it this way.
Okay. And if we go back a little bit to your time in the club, one of our attendees has asked, did you ever, or could you ever turn down a client once you found out what they wanted? So if, I suppose you would have had a lot of these discussions downstairs, but if when you were upstairs, they asked you to do, I don't know, something like S&M, was that, how did you react? Was it something you could say, no, I'd rather not? Or what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, you can decline. You can always decline a client. You have the right to say no in the Netherlands. And if a client wanted something, because I have experienced that he wanted something that we didn't discuss, basically. And then if he really wanted that and I didn't provide, I would say, okay, I'm going to get another girl for you. But then he had to pay another €300 per hour, because I am going downstairs and another girl goes up. But I have been upstairs already for a certain amount of time. But clients who are looking for something specific and that is their thing, they want to make sure they get it. So they will tell you downstairs or ask you if it is something that you provide, because that is their thing. That's what they want. Yeah. Okay. But you always had the right to decline. To say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to someone who's considering sex work as their main source of income?
My advice would be to have a job on the side. Okay. In this industry, I admit you can make a lot of money. You can easily make 8,000, 10,000 per month or even more, but you spend just as much. It's a lifestyle that you're gonna live towards that lifestyle. I don't know how else to say it. So having a job on the side gives you security. My worst year was my last year when I got dependent on making money because I didn't have a job.
Okay.
And so I would advise girls definitely to do it as a part-time thing and not make it your whole profession, because you also have your resume to take into account. And it stops at some point and then you need to find another job. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Is it something that you put on your resume? Or does it depend on the job that you're going for next?
No, it's not something you put on your resume, because it was my side job. It wasn't my main, it was a part-time thing, and it's none of their business. If they would ask me, I wouldn't deny it, but I worked for an advertisement agency, and I worked as a designer for a Dutch brand in the meantime. I did a study with travel school in the meantime. Those are really, good things to put on my resume. So that is what I placed on my resume. And people still judge. They just judge you, Yeah.
Does it frustrate you that people judge the profession so much? Is it frustrating that people aren't more open-minded or sort of don't try and understand it more?
It can be when you hear people talk about it, but then I realized they just don't know. They just don't know how it can be. So it can be frustrating especially for the girls who are still working, especially with, when they couldn't work for 4 months with Corona, for example. And then when they could work again. When they couldn't work, they didn't have any safety nets from the government, but they do pay a lot of tax. So that frustrates me that it's still like such a stigma. It's legal, pay a lot of tax, but yeah, there is still a big stigma on it.
That is a strange thing, that you pay a lot of tax, so it is legal, but there's still this massive stigma attached to it. It's a really strange balance to think of. Sort of a similar kind of question, one of our attendees wanted to know if are there things that tourists do that are disrespectful in particular? Are there things that, I suppose, when tourists come to Tour de BonTon, or if they came to the club when you were still working there, are there things that they would do that would, I suppose, frustrate you as well? Or are there things that you wish that they knew that they should or shouldn't say?
Yeah. No, not really. When it comes to the tour, I know that people do the tour because they're really interested and they really want to know more about this industry, because in some countries, in most countries actually, it's actually illegal, and it's something that people just don't talk about. So sometimes I do get questions like, oh, you speak very well, or you are very smart, and then they just don't realize that I'm just a woman who is smart, and yeah, I can speak well, but they have this image of a sex worker, and they come with that image, they come to the tour. But that's nice about the tour, is that, they have a different perspective when they leave.
Yeah.
And that is how do you say that, the power of our tour is that they do see the other side, and it is a real story, and this is my story. And when they come on another day, they get another story of my colleague, so that's her story. And what we both have in common is that we had no problems working in this industry, but I'm open about it. And for her, for her family and loved ones, it's a secret.
That's really interesting. I know you mentioned when you sort of talked about how you became a sex worker was obviously something that you did completely of your own volition.
Yeah.
Are there other women men or women or transgender people as well, who you've worked with where it wasn't, they didn't necessarily go in planning it? Were there sort of stories of people, I suppose, not purposefully going into the sex work industry?
Well, a lot of like forced, you mean?
Yeah.
Or for the money? I don't know girls who were forced into this industry. I've never met them. Okay. I know it's happening, but I never met them. But I did know a lot of girls who did it to pay off a study. We all end up doing it for the money.
Well, like you said, it's good money.
It is. And but for me, I was intrigued. I knew some girls who actually liked the sex part of it, and a lot of girls who did it because the money was good.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about
it was their choice,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. You've talked a lot about sort of the way that women, how you've handled this industry, and how a lot of women around you have as well. What about men? Do you know a lot of male sex workers? Is their experience different? No? Okay.
No, I don't know. I do know transgenders though.
Okay.
So they work at the red light district with the blue lights area. And the transgenders that I know have worked there for years. And I don't know their personal experience because we haven't really talked about that. But I do know that they work still. I don't know if they're still there, but they did work there when I worked.
So what was the blue light area? I've heard of the red light district, but not the blue light area. Is that?
You have the blue lights. Those are transgenders. So you have the red lights and then the blue lights. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I had no idea. So then, is there an all-male sex club in the red light district as well, or strip club? Is there? And then, do they have a different color light, or no?
No, there is no. I think the males do more. You more have male escorts, but not a club in this form with male sex workers. Not that I know of.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
So then coming back to women then, what are the requirements for women to work in the BonTon club, for example?
Yeah. You have to be 21 for start, and that is in Amsterdam. Actually, outside of Amsterdam, it's 18. But in Amsterdam, it's 21. Basically, the girls can call the club, and then they will get invited for a one-on-one. And when the owner thinks like, okay, this could be something, because she goes over energy. She has to be someone who fits the group, and you have to take care of yourself. After that, you have to fill in a form with all sorts of questions. Why do you want to step into this industry? What do you think you're going to get out of it? Are you in a relationship? All the questions you are asking me now, a lot of them. What does your relationship think of you working? Are you in debt? How high your debt? They just want to make sure you do it for the right reasons. And next to that question form, they have to fill in a form of self-reliance, because they want to know if you can fend for yourself by asking some questions. What are you going to do if a client wants to do something that you don't want to do? How are you going to, fend for yourself, especially when you just started working? That can be, So, and after that, she will get 5 nights in which she can see if she likes it or not. So, and in those 5 nights, they will try to, she will get her first client.
Okay.
And then, for sure if it's something you can't or cannot do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it does sound like a very sensitive process, and that the club does want to, I suppose, look after the people, that it's in their best interests as well, I'm sure, to make sure that they've hired someone who knows what she's doing. Are they so how else does the club, I suppose, like look after you? Do they provide condoms? Are there other things that they provide so that you can do your job sort of safely?
Every room there is a jar with condoms and lubricants, and the rooms are equipped with a big bathtub. It's pretty basic, but it looks nice, and you have everything you need and more. Actually, the rooms are that of this owner are always very well taken care of. As of course, you always have your own sizes of condoms with you as a sex worker, but they provide the medium size and lubricants in the room in case you really need it. In case you don't have your own with you.
Okay.
So that is provided for, and the rooms are cleaned afterwards, but you do have to make sure the towels are, thrown in the how do you say that?
Like the laundry hamper?
The laundry. Yeah. And then the cleaner comes and cleans the room. Okay. And then to make it ready for the next client.
Okay. Do you shower between clients? Like how many, is that what sort of, I suppose for yourself, how did you used to go between clients?
Yeah, you do. Every room has a big bathtub. So when you're finished, we would walk the clients downstairs, say goodbye to them, and then go upstairs and in some cases get ready to sit downstairs again. But what we aimed for in the club was to stay with one client for multiple hours instead of every hour a different client, because that costs a lot of your energy. It's a lot of role play that you do. So, and the role that you play depends on the client you are with. So if you have every hour a different client, I never liked that because I had to switch to a different role, or it was a bit exhausting. I'd rather be with one client for multiple hours.
Yeah, I suppose it's reading a new person then. So just when you've sort of got used to one person, then it's interesting. Okay.
Exactly.
You mentioned that each room has a bathtub. Talk me through what these rooms look like. What's in the room? What could you?
Well, basically, they're very spacious. With the bathtubs are really big. Reason for that is hygiene, of course, reason number one. But the girls do join the clients in the bathtub. it's very comfortable way to start your time together, because
Okay.
water is calming and you start touching. And so for that reason, the bathtubs are big. And of course, it's also a nice way to increase the time, because you are taking a bath together. That can take a long time. And most clients pay for the first hour because they don't know you yet. And after 50 minutes, the bartenders will always call upstairs. They check the time for you to ask if he wants to extend or wants to leave. And yeah, 90% wants to extend the first hour because, you're still in the bathtub in most cases. If the client wanted to extend, the bartenders would always come upstairs to handle the payment. Every payment is done up front, always, never after. Yeah, so the client knows what he's paying for.
Yeah.
So that's no hassle afterwards. Yeah. And if a lot of payment is done cash, it's pretty much a cash business.
Okay. Are there,
Yeah.
so, I mean, you said that you would generally try and sort of keep one client for the majority of the evening, but I mean, how many clients could you serve for sort of in the space of an evening? Or is there an average number of people that you would end up being with for the night?
Well, the club is open. It was open between 9 and 5, but that doesn't mean the client had to leave at 5. When I still worked, my type of clients came 3 or 4 in the morning, and then we would start our nights. Yeah, really. I don't know how I did it. Now I go to bed at 8:30 p.m. But
very different lifestyle.
It's very different. Yeah, but then the hours started to tick and run. So I would probably have then a client in the before evening or in the early evening, and then later on another one that would stay a couple of hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the owners of these kinds of clubs, are they men or women or both, or sort of as a rule or as an average?
Well, it just so happens that the owner of BonTon is a woman, and she also has another club in the east side of Amsterdam called Club LV, and that is one of the first clubs I started working. So that's 15 years ago around, and I always liked working for her. So this is her second club, and I admire her, how she does it, how she runs her club. It's really from a girl's perspective. At the other club, her parents would visit a lot. They would sit in the kitchen. We would have bingo night with Christmas, with our short dresses, heels on, having bingo the first 2 hours before the club opened. It was just, yeah, it was really a family feeling that you had. And you would see the girls 5 nights a week, sometimes 6. And of course, you would see each other very privately. So you did bond with each other. And I liked how her clubs were. Yeah. So I worked for her a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that it is a woman who owns the club. I think the image that you get from the media often is not that. It's that men own the clubs and women work in them. So it's really, it feels somewhat empowering to hear that it's a woman who owns the BonTon club.
And the woman who was here, the club who was here before BonTon, the owner was also a female.
Okay.
So, and the escort agency where I worked for were 2 females.
So is it quite common? Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't know. Maybe intuitively I chose to work for females.
It's really interesting. It makes a lot of sense, I suppose, that they have maybe a better sense of the sort of women's perspective. This is, I suppose, a bit of a strange question, and I think you kind of answered it a little bit earlier, but now that they're sort of in the period of the pandemic, and if it goes on, will the BonTon Club remain? Will it open again? Has it opened again? I know Tour de BonTon is open, but the club itself, are there rules about whether or not they can open?
They are open, actually.
Okay.
The sex workers started working as of July 1st. So it is business as usual without any restrictions. So the girls are working. The club is open in the evening from Tuesday to Saturday, actually. between 9 and 5. Yeah. So yeah, lucky for them, because for most of them it's their income.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the average? You mentioned that girls have to be 21 to join the BonTon Club, for example, but what is the sort of average age of sex workers in your experience?
Yeah, in their 20s, 25.
Okay.
20, yeah, beginning of 20s, 23, 24, 25. Yeah. And in the escort business, you did have also more mature women. But in the clubs, what I saw, the girls were younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think someone might have clocked the fact that there are a few polls in the background. So we have one question asking if you're a sex worker at the BonTon Club, do you have to learn how to pole dance? Is it sort of part of the role?
Yeah. BonTon is promoted as a strip club.
Mm-hmm.
We do have the prostitution license on the building, but we promote it as a strip club because Lotte, the owner, already has another club, which is only a sex club in the east side of Amsterdam. So the girls who work here are either strippers or sex workers. And for the clients to see the difference, I have some items here. The strippers wear kimonos during the night with the lingerie underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And the sex workers who go to the room with the clients, they wear sexy dresses. Yeah, I didn't tell that in the beginning. I was so nervous. I just said something. But yeah, now
interesting
I'm calm.
to
Now
see.
I'm going to explain. So that the client can see the difference between a sex worker and a stripper.
So is it something they get told when they come in? Like, this is who's
exactly. Okay. Yeah, that's something they get told. And they can, if they want to give money to the strippers, they buy play money, BonTon play money. 1 bill equals €1 because we have the coins, of course, so they cannot.
It's not quite, understandable. Okay.
So it's 1 bill equals €1, and then they can spend that on the dancers.
Okay. And can you tell us why it's called?
I can show you a little bit more.
Yes, please. So some people have said, could we have a sort of virtual look around? If you can give us a quick.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, here we have the champagne fridge. There's a lot of money in this fridge.
Yes.
And, can you see it well?
Yes, that's perfect. I can see quite clearly, yeah.
It's decorated by a Dutch designer, Casper Reinders, and actually what they wanted to create was a luxury vibe. So it needed to look like a luxury club.
Yeah.
And so we have 3 poles. That's one. The middle one is the main pole, and then one in the corner. This is like a VIP corner.
Okay.
And I cannot go upstairs because I don't know if the connection will hold, guys. I'm sorry. And this is the bar. And then we have the stairs that leads up to the rooms.
And then that's the different rooms, all with the bathtubs, or each with their own. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And then we have 3 floors where the rooms are divided.
So this room that you're in now is quite small. How many people would typically fit into a space like this?
Yeah, it depends, like 50 or a little bit less. Before Corona, it was like between 40, 50, but then it was packed. It was like, and now they prefer everybody to stay seated, of course. So now it's a lot less. Yeah. And, we had people waiting in the hallway to get in, actually, because Amsterdam doesn't really have strip clubs. Has sex clubs, but not. Yeah, in the strip clubs that we have are situated in the red light district, and not everybody wants to go there. So, this is a nice welcome to the city.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What's the sort of the origin story behind the name of the BonTon Club?
She just liked the name. There's no, but it's suitable though, BonTon. But she just liked the name. Yeah. Yes.
So someone's asked, so now that you're no longer a sex worker, but you do have a position at BonTon, they wanted to know a little bit more about your current position with BonTon.
Yeah. Next to the tours at BonTon, I actually worked as a location manager somewhere else when the owner contacted me and told me her vision for BonTon. And I decided I wanted to be a part of that. Now the plans are a little bit on hold that she had because of the virus. But I started working here because I felt it was important to be transparent and tell the story, my story, and be a part of her vision that she has. But next to working here at BonTon, I have my own platform for women, and I actually coach women to stand in their power and to live authentically and to not bother so much about other people's opinion but your own. And I organize events for women, and I'm actually writing a book at the moment. Not only about my life here, but yeah, I'm pretty busy. Yeah.
It sounds like it. Gee.
Yeah, but nice.
What is the name of your platform? I think a lot of people would be really interested in it.
The name of my platform is Noir Femme. It's a platform only for women. And and I also work for the platform of To the BonTon, actually, which you also can follow. It's To the BonTon at Facebook, at the Facebook page, and also at Instagram. And if you want to see more about the inside of the club, we will place that online in a few weeks.
Oh, amazing!
Start giving sneak peeks and invite visitors to have a look inside our club and be a part of the tour of some sort.
So I'm correct in thinking that your role with Tour de BonTon is to do tours like, I suppose, what you've done now. So if people who are super interested in this would love to come and visit, they could do a tour with you and see more of the club.
Yeah, that's one of my roles. And I also have a colleague that works on Sundays. So we are also open on Sundays. And that's a whole different story, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could do the tour twice and have a different story.
That's, I think a lot of people would.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think different perspectives is really important. Yeah. Jennifer, this has been such an amazing experience. I don't know if you can see the comments from people, but they've thoroughly enjoyed how open and how interesting you've been. This is really, it's just such a special experience, I think, to have a conversation like this and for people to hear stories like yours. So thank you so much. We've really enjoyed it. To everyone who joined in, thank you very much for joining in. Thanks you very much for sending us all your questions. You made this experience thoroughly worthwhile for everyone involved. As you all know, or as many of you probably know by now, this whole experience is part of Tiqets Awakening weeks. And we're sort of halfway through our Dutch Tiqets Awakening weeks. And next week we'll be in Italy, and the following week in the US. You can visit Tour de BonTon in person as well. And you can book your tickets through Tiqets Awakening weeks as well. Just go to tiqets.com/blog/awakenings-weeks. Thank you very, very much, everyone. We look forward to finding more ways to culture with you all. And thank you again, Jennifer. It has been a real,
you're welcome.
Wonderful experience. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.